Sorry, I was just counting up all the different novels I know. I'm up to 8 so far. But did you know that out of all the novels that exist out there, there are only 2 types of stories? All of them. Every single book out there can be lumped into one of 2 categories. I won't bury the lead any longer. The 2 types of story are either a character goes on a journey or a stranger comes to town. Said another way, your story is either about a character going to a new environment or a new character coming into an environment. Speaking of new characters coming to a new environment, if you're new to my channel, why not subscribe so that you get to see more content just like this? This idea of there being 2 different stories is attributed to many different authors, but based on my research, it should be credited to a guy named John Gardner who wrote the book The Art of Fiction: Notes on Craft for Young Writers. I wonder which of the 2 plots that book follows. I'm certain other writers have expressed similar ideas over the years, but Gardner seems to be the most cited source, and the journey stranger wording is directly from him as far as I can tell. Now, it's important to understand the context in which his advice is given here. His recommendation is specific to the beginning of a novel, so how you would start a novel, and this advice was originally dispensed as part of an exercise where he recommends that the reader use one of these 2 plots as the locus of their story. So I don't think he was necessarily directly stating that every single story out there has to fit in one of these 2 buckets, but I still think this idea is near universal enough that that idea is at least worth discussion. One important element of this plot duality idea is one of perspective. Obviously, you can flip what a story is based on whose perspective you're looking from. The character on a journey is only on a journey from their perspective. From the perspective of the place that they're journeying to, they are a new character coming into that environment. Another factor here, and this is alluded to in John Gardner's original advice, is that an entire novel's plot will not necessarily fit into either of these 2 ideas. In a story as long as a novel, you're likely to have characters moving into several different environments. You might have several different strangers coming to town, so it's possible to kind of flip-flop between both types throughout a story as long as a novel. One example that immediately comes to mind is Jane Eyre, because that story involves her moving into Thornfield, which is a character going on a journey, and then later on, after she has settled into the new environment, Mr. Rochester appears, and to her at least, he's effectively a stranger, so that's the stranger coming to town. I would argue that this idea also applies at the scene level. Almost every single scene is either going to be spurred by a character moving to a different location or a new character coming into a location. At the scene level, it's unlikely that the character will be journeying to consistently new environments or meeting completely strange characters. The character might be going to the same bar that they're going to every Wednesday night, but there's some kind of change that has happened there since they were last there, and that kind of moves the story forward. It sort of advances things. There's this concept called a French scene, which is basically you break a story down into different scenes based on every single time a character either enters or leaves a scene. So every time you have a character coming or going from a scene, that's a different French scene, which is a different kind of French scene than the type you're probably thinking of. Another kind of related idea to this is the environments that your character is journeying to, or the strangers that are coming into an environment, might not necessarily be either new environments or strange characters. They might just be changing environments or changing characters. There's a book called Brian's Winter, written by Gary Paulson, which is the sequel to The Hatchet. The story centers around a kid who has survived a plane crash in the Canadian wilderness and is trying to survive in said wilderness. Brian's Winter doesn't involve a new character coming to town or the character going on any sort of journey, but he's in an environment that's changing. The season is changing from fall to winter, and this presents new challenges that he has to survive. So that's a case where The character is not really going on a journey, they're staying in the same place, but the place where they're staying is changing, and that's basically having the same effect as going on a journey because they're in an effectively new environment. So why is this important? Why is this something you should pay attention to? Well, the common thread between both of these stories is change, either a new character entering or a new environment. Stories, no matter what, have to be spurred by some kind of change. That's one of the crucial elements of any plot, the inciting incident, the moment where things change from the status quo and we start moving into the conflict of the story. Bringing in a new character or moving to a new environment is a really easy way, and based on this rule, some would argue the only two ways to possibly incite a conflict. A major place where this also helps a story is around exposition. Exposition gets incredibly clunky when characters are discussing details that they should already know. It becomes clear that it's being done solely for the benefit of the reader. You haven't been the same, Bill, since your wife left 4 years ago and you lost the farm after you accidentally invested in that mail order vacuum filter business that turned out to be a Canadian bacon laundering scam. That paragraph is a really sucky way to deliver exposition because it's obvious that the character saying this stuff already knows this stuff about Bill, and Bill obviously already knows this stuff. However, if Bill is going to a new place, then it's more natural for him to explain his tale of pork-related woe to the new strangers that he meets. Stories fundamentally are about change, and this plot duality idea really emphasizes that and requires you to focus on it. I think if you applied a lot of vigorous examination to this idea, you would indeed find very good stories that violate the idea. I'm looking forward to hearing about a bunch of them in the comments underneath this video. But I would also say that if your novel doesn't fit in either of these categories and you're having problems with it, it could be time to go to a new place or bring in some new people. Just like the people who watch this video, which you are among because you're hearing me say this right now. So there you have it. I hope you enjoyed this video and found the advice in it useful. If you want to see more stuff like this, you can check out all my other writing advice related videos and subscribe to my channel. If you want to financially support this channel, help me buy better equipment and make these videos look, sound, and feel better, you can support this channel on Patreon. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.